pitch drilled to left field. Is it high enough? See ya! A walk-off grand slam, and the Yankees win.
And he drives one to right field over toward the line. Long run for Laureano, and he home runs it, and the Mets win the ball game.
Episode 38 of The Burrows. Kevin Bunk, Michael Merlo coming to you every week throughout the baseball season, a few times a week. And we have our biggest episode, my favorite one of the year, is the preseason predictions, now just a week before opening day. And we are locking in our predictions for the season. Obviously, we could have a couple injuries here, Mike. I was a little worried about that. Could anything happen before now on opening day? But we're locking in what we have. And we're going to live by it. We're going to die by it throughout this season. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to go through over-under totals that you will see on FanDuel. We're using FanDuel for all of them. So we'll go division by division, give you our over-unders for all 30 teams, and then tell you our division rankings, move on to the next, and eventually at the end of each league, we'll give you our playoff standings. And by the end of the show, you'll have World Series predictions, major awards predictions, talk through a couple dark horses for every different scenario that we'll discuss. But let's get underway here with the American League East, where the New York Yankees, defending AL champs, have the highest over-under win total, 88.5. Mike, where do you go with that number?
Yeah, I'm going to go over. I've seen a lot of people go under now, especially with the Garrett Cole injury. They were at around 92, 91, 93 and a half before he went down. Listen, the Yankees have dealt with injury, but I kind of feel like injury is almost like a luck thing sometimes. And I don't think this team is, I think God will be on their side here. I don't think they are going to absorb any more big injuries to that rotation. They are 100% testing their depth, but I'm going to go over the 88.5. I mean, it's a weak league, Kevin. They play in a tough division, but it's a weak league overall. And they still, to me, on paper right now, feel like the best team in the weak league.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think 88.5 is a little bit of a disrespectful number for the Yankees. I think that they should be sitting around 90.5 right now, and could, if injuries do go the wrong way for them, let's face it, they're an Aaron Judge away from being a 78-win team. I mean, that's the level of injury like scale that they have right now, how it could swing the other way if their best player goes down. They don't have much insurance, but I do think sometimes, and this might be a little drastic for this example, but you know how everyone was always like, if Derek Jeter played in Kansas City or Cincinnati, no one would talk about him this way. Well, I think if this team was in Kansas City or Cincinnati, we'd sit here and say they might be pretty competitive and they might be a 90-win team. And just because they're the Yankees and they lost Soto, everyone is getting high on ripping on them right now. And the second team we're going to talk about here, the Red Sox, have become like the girl everybody wants to take out before this season in the American League. And they're sitting at 86.5. The Orioles are also at 86.5. But we'll start with Boston because we've spoken ad nauseum about them this offseason. We like what they've done. Over, under, I'm assuming we're both over.
Yeah, 86.5. I'm going to take the over. I am one of those people that is waiting to take them out. I'm knocking on the door asking Boston, hey, can I take you out on a date here? I do like what they've done. They're going to have to get healthy in their rotation sooner rather than later. And they're also going to have to add to that bullpen at some point because right now it's not a strong bullpen. But I believe they will do that at some point. I think they start the year strong offensively. They are going to be good, very good throughout the entire season. And I love the fact that they're going to bring up a lot of these younger players to inject some life into this team mid-year, towards the end of the year. And I think that's just going to add so much more for this club. I like the Sox this year, and I think they go over that total.
Yeah, and listen, we've spoken a million times now about what we like about Boston. And it's a couple different things, but you're right, they have young players too. I think this is a huge factor in 162 games. They have young, talented players that are providing depth in their organization, and you can do two different things with them. You could fill them in for the guys who get injured. If Trevor Story, who we spoke about last week as a guy that we wish wasn't on the team, if Trevor Story is hitting 208 halfway through the year and he's off the field every other week, you could call one of these guys up and get that boost, or you could trade one of these guys if you're really in the thick of it and get a huge catalyst for a World Series run at the deadline. So I like Boston this year. I don't know how you can't like Boston. They're one of those teams, few teams in the American League, where you look at them on paper and you just say they have a good squad. They can compete for this league because there's not a lot of good teams in the AL. Orioles also 86.5. Where do you go here?
Yeah, It's tough. I'm right on this line here. I think they make the playoffs still, but I'm going to take a slight under. They have not added to this team like I think both of us would have liked them to, and a lot of other people would have liked them to around this young talent. Adley Rutschman was putrid in the second half last season. Gunnar Henderson wasn't great in the second half last year either. They're going to score some runs. I worry about the rotation. A lot of younger guys coming back from major injuries, and the veterans they brought in, I'm not a fan of. They replace Anthony Santander, who's hit 30, 40 home runs the past couple of seasons, with Tyler O'Neill, who had a nice season last year, but I don't think he's the player that Santander is. I don't see how this team has gotten better over the past season. I go under. I'm not a fan. I think that second half really worried me last season.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'm under. I thought the line was a little rich too. I think that Baltimore's in for a rude awakening, and a couple different factors playing. And I spoke about it with the Padres earlier in the year. I'll speak about it again on the Padres later in the show. But when you have ownership that is signaling to you in a World Series window, we're not adding players, and our team is going to be worse on paper, even though we can make it better or at least keep it the same, that sends a bad message to a clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a young group of guys here, Baltimore, they've been to the playoffs the last 2 years as a top 3 favorite in the American League, and they haven't won a game. They hardly even score any runs in these games that they've gotten to. So handful of runs in 4 games. They've gotten swept out of the postseason 2 years in a row. I think Baltimore's in for a rude awakening in the division this year.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. And again, I like a couple of other teams. I like another team we're about to talk about. I don't know if I like them better. I think it's very, very close. I think we're about to talk about this team, but again, Baltimore to me, not enough in that rotation. You didn't replace Corbin Burns. Just I don't see how they improve much off of what they did, especially in that second half.
All right, we'll move quick through these last 2 teams, and then we'll get through the whole division and our standings. Rays, 81.5. How do you like that number?
Love the over. I love the over.
Wow.
I think this is a team, Kevin, I don't love that they're playing a lot of these home games early at Steinbrenner Field in Tampa. I'm not a fan of that. They don't really have a home field advantage, but I do think that this team is better on paper than people think. They're going to pitch. They could be 5, 6, 7 guys deep in their rotation. You know about their bullpen. It's always good. Fairbanks is back healthy. McClanahan, he's back. I mean, but before he went down, he was considered one of the top pitchers in the league. Yep. Now he's back from Tommy John. Kevin, I really, really like this team, and it would not shock me at all if they finished ahead of the Orioles. I really wouldn't.
I have the Rays under, but I will admit it is the least comfortable under I have in the entire American League. Maybe in the entire MLB. This is a very uncomfortable under because I say under, I think they're probably going to win 81 games.
Okay.
And go 500, but then it's 81.5. And when I line up my division, you'll understand a little bit more. But I think that the Rays are going to be just a thorn in the side of Boston and the Yankees in terms of this should be going into the season your easiest division win, and maybe you win a lot of those games, but not one of those are going to be easy. I like the Rays team. I think they got a pretty competitive group. If they ended up in the postseason, I pick them under right now, but if they ended up in the postseason in that 5 or 6 seed, hey, if things go wrong for Boston and the Yankees, if they scraped out the division, I'm not going to be entirely shocked. No, what about the Blue Jays here?
I went under. They've made some improvements, and Santander's a good player. Scherzer obviously looks pretty good actually in spring training, but I went under. I'm not a fan of this team at all. They're going to be better defensively, but there's just not much here, and I don't like the manager. I really don't like the manager. Yep. I think he's gone after this year. I went under.
I went over.
Okay.
And I understand what you're saying there. I went over, and I think that they're going to surprise people this year. I look at the lineup, and they have a chance at having, if you look through the entirety of the AL, a couple guys have to go right for them, but they have a chance at having one of the best 1 through 6s in the league. And that's really not even a praise on them. It's just when you look around the American League, how many 1 through 6s do you even like? And Toronto is one of the teams that if Bichette playing for a contract performs, I know Vlad's going to perform playing for this contract this year. He could be an MVP finalist for all we know. Santander, I think, has a nice year wedged between Vlad and Springer. And then Jimenez was a great ad. I'm such an Andres Jimenez guy. That was a great ad for them, and a lot of teams could have and should have jumped on that.
He can't hit, Kevin. He can't hit.
I know, but I think he just adds a solid player in a spot that they didn't have one for years. And now, since Semien, they haven't had a solid player next to Bichette in the infield, and now you get a Gold Glove guy. I think that the pitching staff could surprise some people because it's a good group of veteran names.
Yeah.
Gausman, Barrios, Bassett, Scherzer, Manoah, I'm not going to rely on to be healthy or to really do anything.
Perform.
And then you got to find that fifth arm. It's just in the landscape of the AL, I think Toronto could be a surprising 82, 83 win team. But with that being said, I'd like to hear your AL East standings.
Okay, so at first I had the New York Yankees winning this division. I think Heel coming back in July is going to be like a major, I know Cashman loves this, like a big deadline move, but we saw what he did early in the season last year in a short stint. He was great. I think Heel comes back and does that for the Yankees. In second, I had the Red Sox. Third, I had the Orioles. Fourth, I had the Rays, but it's very close. It's going to be within a game or two. And then in fifth, I had the Blue Jays.
The AL East was surprisingly difficult for me to gauge after the top two. I think the top two is a consensus now around baseball, Yankees, Red Sox, or even Red Sox, Yankees.
I think a lot of people really like the Orioles, Kevin. I think a lot of people are all over this Baltimore team.
So I look at this Baltimore team, and I'll just reveal it now. I have them finishing in last.
Wow!
And Toronto in third, Tampa in fourth, in what is a very lackluster but competitive with each other bottom three in the division. I don't think Baltimore is going to win 60 games.
Right.
I think that they'll be a last place team that maybe wins 78, 77, 78 games, and it's a really close division this year. Like first place and last place are separated by about 13 games, 14 games. It's not a big 25-game gap. But look at this Orioles team, Mike. If Gunnar is not the player that he was in the first half for the entire season, I don't see them going too far because I don't love Adley at the plate. I'm sorry. I just can't get around to it. I know he had the thumb thing last year, but he was not good the second half of the season. From July 1st on, he was bad. And I don't trust him to be great. And then I look at the rest of the guys. Cedric Mullins, how much do I trust him anymore? He's lucky to have a 300 on base in a season. Jordan Westberg, we'll see what he does first year after having his breakout. Colton Cowser, could see him having a down year. Like Tyler O'Neill, Ryan O'Hearn, these are guys. O'Hearn's a guy that played way over his expected last year. And Jackson Holliday might suck in his first season in Major League Baseball. So
he sucked last year when he played.
He was terrible when he played last year. I just look at that. And then the number two pitcher is Charlie Morton. I mean, and their ace is F-line. What are we doing, man? This team
and their bullpen's not good.
Bullpen's bad.
Cano came back. He's throwing, I think, 4 miles per hour under his before he went under the.
He feels like he might get shut down in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's not a lot's going well in Birdland. Listen, you texted me last night and you said, "Am I getting like crazy? Like, what were your exact words to me last night?"
I asked if you were gonna, because we didn't want to spoil either of our takes. We wanted to wait for our natural reactions on the show, but I asked you, am I going to be the only one here that's spewing just irrational garbage, like crazy stuff? I don't know exactly what I said, but it was along those lines.
Yeah. And
you were like, no, I got some stuff, and I believe that you will. But this is actually when I texted you, when I put the Orioles in last. I was like,
yeah. And when I texted you, my reaction to no, we'll be pretty even was, I think the Rays are going to be better than people think. I don't know. I actually don't know where we're going to go. No, I got one in the NL Central that I think you won't have. So there we go.
Okay. Yeah, but I think this year for Baltimore is going to be, they can't pitch at all. They're very discouraged by the state of the organization. The other teams in the division are better than people expect. Mm-hmm. And Baltimore just has that year where they really the new ownership is really going to have to look themselves in the mirror at the end of the season and say, we have to start spending here or we are completely losing touch of the fan base and this core of young players we have. Because they do have a good core of young players. You can't deny that. Offensively, they do. And this is just going to be one of those years, I think, where they have to look back at the end of it and really, really take a hard look at themselves as to why, and that meaning ownership, they have to look at themselves as to why they were not where they should have been. And the team's not good. The team's not good, but the team might be able to win in this American League.
The Orioles,
the guys hit.
place.
Birds in
I love it.
last.
I listen. I respect it. I do. I wish I had the guts to say that. I do. I wish
Well,
I had the guts to say it.
When we're sitting here the second week of July and they're in first place and they're 20 games over 500, it's not going to be
And
a
the
great pat on
Yankees
the
are
back
the Yankees
moment.
are in third, and
The Yankees are in the gutter.
you're completely checked out of baseball.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you're just basically doing this podcast alone about the Mets. Let's move to the AL Central here. We'll get back to playoff seedings later.
Yeah.
And how many teams you get, but AL Central, we have a group of teams here. I think we could admit the White Sox will be in last.
Yeah,
I want to start with them, actually.
Okay.
We don't even have to talk about their team. Over under 54.5 wins.
Passon wrote an article, did a preview, and I was reading it last night, and he had said if they improve their win total by 10 games, they're still one of the 10 worst teams in baseball history.
Yeah. Yep.
Is that not crazy?
It's insane. They were that bad last year.
I don't think they do it. I think they go under again. Their win total was at 52.5, 51.5, 54.5. I think they go under that.
Which, again, generous number. For the
right. Like if you go, usually when you have totals this low, especially last year, I made a lot of money doing this. When you had a low total, I would bet the over on the total because I'm like, this is just a complete overreaction. Like the A's. I bet the over on the A's.
Mm-hmm.
And it hit. The A's ended up finishing the year strong. This I can't because they could probably improve by 10 wins, but it's still not enough to hit that over. So if they improve by 10 games, which I think they probably will, it doesn't hit the over. So I'll still go under here, 54.5.
And there's a chance when you look at the roster that they're as bad as they were last year. There's nothing impressive here.
It's not, but they're going to call up some younger guys. They got this kid Teal. I'm not saying he makes a 10-game difference, but
well, they got rid of the pitcher who won a fourth of their games.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Got rid of that guy. Oh my God.
Either way, I mean, if they go over, what are they going to win? 56 games. So they stake. Let's go through the rest of the division, though. The highest over-unders were Tigers and Twins at 83.5. Where do you go on both of these squads?
I went under on both of them, especially the Twins. I do not like the Twins. Royce Lewis is out now again. They announced that this morning. The guy is such a talented player, but he's never on the field.
Thanks.
Buxton, always injured. Correa, but he's always injured as well. The pitching staff doesn't impress me much. This is an easy under for me on the Twins. I don't like them. Last season was a very disappointing season as well. Left a bad taste in my mouth. I go under the 83.5. And the same with the Tigers. They just don't have enough offensively. It's a close under, but they don't have enough offensively for me to sit here and say they're a postseason team.
I really wrestled with the Tigers because they're a little better than they were last year. Like Gleyber Torres, based on their offense last year, is actually a significant add. But that's not saying much. And part of me is thinking like the miracle run you had at the end of the year, is that the Tigers? Or was that just a great story of a team that got hot for 5 weeks? And can they do it again this year? They need to have another one of those 5-week stretches at some point to be able to do that again. And
their rotation, Kevin, is so good. It's
so great. I have them over, but I wrestled with this a lot. I think that they go over, and they're going to be one of my playoff teams. But they have a really bad offense. Really, really bad.
I just kept them out.
Yep.
And like you, I went back and forth on this. I had over, and then I ended up going under. It's just, I couldn't justify it offensively. Does Riley Green take that next step? If he's able to take that next step and become a legitimate player in the American League, fine.
Yeah.
Maybe they go over and make the playoffs, but I just can't see it. There's another team in this division with more firepower on offense and a rotation that I like.
Is that the Royals at 82.5 as the line?
It is, and I'll bet that over, personally. I'm going to give you a couple here where I'm going to give you an over. I'm going to tell you if I'm betting it or not.
Yeah.
This is one of them. I'll bet this over. I like the rotation. I like the top two. Lugo's being slept on once again. Cole Reagan's is a legitimate pitcher as well at the top. And offensively, they have more. It's a deeper lineup than last season. It's a deeper lineup than any lineup in this division. So give me this Royals team with the best player easily in the division and the second best player in the entire American League in Bobby Witt Jr. I'll take the Royals over, and I'll take the Royals to win the division.
Yeah, and you know that I've been high on them as well. They're an obvious over for me, and they're going to be my division winner. Where do you have the Guardians? Same exact number, 82.5.
Yeah, I went under. They dismantle the team. They trade Naylor. They trade Jimenez. They're going to shock you because they're going to pitch well, but they're going to go under the 82.5. They'll sit around there. I got nothing more. They're one of those teams like the Brewers, like the Rays that just they find a way to surprise you, and they're better than you think they're going to be, but maybe it's not enough, and I don't think it's going to be enough this year.
Also, I'm under on the Guardians also, and then we'll just give our division stuff. But when you look through this and you do these, and I'm thinking about it last night, the Twins are kind of one of those teams too, a lot of the time, right? Where I think the Twins are going to stink most years, and they do find themselves, maybe it's just because of the division, but they do find themselves in the thick of the playoff race, first week of September, last week of August, almost every season.
Did you go under on them?
I went under on them. I'm over, so I'll give you my standings quick.
Yeah.
Royals in first, over. Tigers in second, over. Guardians, Twins, White Sox, all under.
Okay. And I went Royals over, Tigers, Royals in first, over. Tigers in second, under. Guardians in third, under. Twins in fourth, under. And then obviously the White Sox under.
And you know what I think is interesting too, and I'm not claiming to be an odds maker here, but these four teams all being at 82.5 or 83.5. Am I nuts for thinking the gap between the Royals, Tigers, Guardians, and Twins is at least you could slice it up how you want. These are not four even teams in my eyes. I think the Royals are more of an 85.5, 86.5 number team. And I think the Tigers should be closer to that too. And then I think Minnesota should be 2 or 3 games lower than that. I was surprised to see, and I'd known it all offseason because it's been this way the whole offseason, but just surprising to see them continue this rate of 82.5, 83.5 for all four of these teams.
It's just putrid baseball. It's just nothing you want to watch, and it's nothing I want to watch either, and I won't watch it.
Nobody's watching it this year.
Nobody's watching it. It's nothing. Bobby Witt is the only reason to watch. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. And Kansas City gets to the postseason, and I'll be satisfied watching their pitching staff in games and watching this team, but other than that, these teams have just no interest. And Skubal, you'll watch for Skubal. But
yes.
Nobody else worth anything. All right, let's just move on here now to the West in the AL, and then after that, we'll go through our playoff bracket in the American League. The West, the highest over-under total is the Houston Astros, 86.5. They traded Kyle Tucker this offseason. They have a lot of different changes here. Bregman's out the door, now a Red Sox. Where are you with the Astros at 86.5?
I went over on the Astros. I do believe that this is a much weaker team than we have seen in the past. But I did go over. It's a weak league. I'm going to continue to say that. There's still some firepower in this offense. Cam Smith, who they got in the Tucker trade, he's looked great in camp. He's probably going to make the team. I do have questions like Altuve to left field at 35 years old. I have a serious issue with that. But something that's very underrated is the top two of this pitching staff. You have Valdez in a contract year and Hunter Brown, who was one of the 3 best pitchers in baseball after a putrid start last season. Okay, Brown was unbelievable to finish that season. So they have one of the best duos at the top of the rotation in the league. Therefore, they have enough offense. With that, I think the staff will be good. I think they go over this, but it's a slight over that I'm not confident in because I think they're an 86, 87, 88 win team.
Yeah, this is one of those lines that you look at, and I think they did a really great job on this line at 86.5. I have the over also, but you're right. I mean, Hunter Brown finished last year strong. He was too big of a prospect for me to think he stinks. I don't need to sit here and try and convince you he's going to be an ace because I'm not sure, but he was way too big. He was one of those rare prospects that were outside of the Yankees or Mets that I really followed his path the year or two before he came up. And he's looked great in spring training also. So he's had a few outings now where you're starting to feel good about him. And you're right, they have a good top of the rotation. I take the over there. The Rangers are a team we've spoken about, 85.5, tied for second highest number in this division. And we've spoken a lot about them as the contender. If not the Yankees, then who? And we've said maybe Texas would be that team. 85.5. I'm going over. Where are you?
I agree. I go over. This is a team that would not shock me if they made a deep run in October. They're going to need some luck on their side with injuries with Nate Eovaldi and Jacob deGrom. But this offense, Kevin, may be the best in the American League. That is not an exaggeration. So give me the Rangers going over that 85.5. They're one of my favorite teams in the entire league. I'm not just, buying a lot of the, hype around them this offseason. There's a lot of really good and young players on this offense that if they take those next steps, they could be elite. So I'm going to take this over. I really do like the Rangers.
And the way that DeGrom has been spoken about and thrown so far, we see that he's going to be a different pitcher, right? He's not going to be the pump 99, 100 on the fastballs and dot the corners that he was with the Mets. It's probably going to be a few miles an hour lower, and he's trying to get a little more crafty, preserve his arm for the rest of his career. We'll see if he can do it. I hope he can. Yep. He's top 3 in Cy Young odds right now.
Which is crazy, by the way.
Which is nuts. However, you look through the AL and you think maybe it's justifiable, but still, DeGrom to win the Cy Young this year would be a stunner. I have them over. Mariners also 85.5. I have them under, and you?
I have them under. When you have the offense they had last season and then don't improve on it in the offseason, how am I supposed to think you're going to be better? They might have the best rotation in baseball, one of the 3 best rotations in baseball, and they are going to waste that away because they did not add to that offense in the offseason. It's disgusting. They were a World Series team for me last season, and they had the pitching staff to do it. They didn't have the offense, one of the worst in baseball. I go under the 85.5.
Yeah, I don't know how you don't improve this offense. You have guys like Victor Robles hitting leadoff. Robles has just not been much of a professional hitter in his career. He's given you a 600 OPS almost every season of his career. J-Rod and Rosa Reyna are really the only 2 guys that I'd lose any sleep over. Cal Raleigh as well, I guess.
Big power bat and Riley. Yeah. They must be expecting this just massive bounce back from J-Rod to from what he was last season, which is an average player, to now becoming that MVP candidate. I think a lot of people thought he was going to be. That's a big ask. That's a big jump for a young guy. I know there was so much potential, so much talent, and I think he will get back to those elite levels, but is it going to be in one season, one jump here? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Athletics, 71.5. I go over.
A lot of hype, a lot of good vibes. I go over. They were busy. Trades, extensions, signings. I go over. They're going to use that ballpark to their advantage at some point as well when they get comfortable.
And then the Angels under 72.5 for me. I thought, first of all, surprised they're a game higher in the line than Oakland. I thought LA's an easy, like 67.5, 66.5 line. But you on the Angels, I'm assuming you're not jumping at them here.
No, I think they'll score some runs offensively, but that staff is just utterly brutal. I mean, just brutal. So, I'll go under the 72.5 as well. Just hope Trout stays healthy. If he can stay healthy for a full maybe go 150, 140, maybe they have a chance to go over, but I'm not counting on that.
All right. Your standings for the AL West, and then we will give our playoff bracket.
Yeah, so I had the Rangers finishing in first, the Astros in second, the Mariners in third, the A's in fourth, and the Angels in fifth.
I have the same exact format there, same standings. I think that's probably the easiest division to predict for some reason. I think that the teams, if you're high on Texas, the rest falls into place with gaps between. Like, it doesn't feel like the A's are as good as the Mariners. Doesn't feel like the Angels are as good as the A's. It doesn't feel like the Mariners are as good as the Astros. So if you're high on Texas and you feel comfortable about your one between Houston and Texas, then easy falls into place the rest of the way. All right, your American League bracket, your seeding for that opening round 1 through 6.
All right, so I have the Yankees as the top seed in the American League once again, the Rangers the second, the Royals the third, the Red Sox the fourth seed, the Astros the fifth, and the Orioles just sneaking in as the sixth.
Okay, so I have Rangers 1, Yankees 2, everything else the same. So Royals, Red Sox, Astros, and I have the Tigers sneaking in as the 6, similar to last season. And who would get to your ALCS and then advance?
ALCS is the Red Sox and the Rangers, and I have the Red Sox defeating the Texas Rangers and moving on to the World Series.
So we both have the Rangers in the championship series. I have the Rangers going back to the World Series.
Okay.
And, maybe a deadline move in
Mhm.
the pitching staff. And I have the Royals playing them in
Wow.
the ALCS. Think they go on a nice little run with, I like Witt. I love Pasquantino. Love the duo there. I like their lineup overall. Salvi still gives you good numbers every year. And I love the pitching staff. So that's that for us in the AL. Now we get to the real meat of Major League Baseball. We saved it for last. The National League. And it starts in the East, Mike, where the Atlanta Braves, 93.5 is their over-under, the second highest in the entire National League. Where do you stand on your favorite franchise?
This is where, Kevin, we're going to get hot here.
Oh, this is it. I mean, the AL was a total warm-up, man. Total warm-up.
This is an under for me. Okay, I know the Braves went to the playoffs. They missed, their two best players, Acuna and Strider, you could say. But how long is it going to take them to come back and get acclimated, get ready, get healthy? Nobody's asking that question. They lose Fried, they lose Morton in that rotation, Minter and other guys in the bullpen as well. And let me ask you this. We talk about, they're going to get these guys back. We're not talking about the potential regression from some guys. Do we think Marcell Ozuna is going to hit 40 home runs again and hit 300? Do we think Chris Sale is going to stay healthy over a full 162 here and be the NL Cy Young Award winner? I don't think so. And look at Ronaldo Lopez. I haven't looked at his expected stats. I'm sure they weren't great, though. He was a big-time ground ball pitcher, big chance guy. Kevin, this team's going to be in the playoffs. I'm not the biggest fan of the Braves. I like the two other teams in this division better than Atlanta. I think it's going to take some time for them to get going, especially with that rotation to start. I go under the 93.5.
I'm sitting over, and excuse my dogs in the background, but I'm sitting over because I think for the reasons you said, all valid, all of the expected drop-offs, but I do think you're going to get that boost again that you didn't get in the beginning of the last year from Austin Riley, from Matt Olson, from Michael Harris. Those guys played down last season. I expect them to play up again this year and give Acuna a cushion to get back to being his usual self. Give Strider a cushion. I'm going over. This is going to be the best division in baseball this year. And I think the Braves at 93.5 is a high number. I think they should be closer to the Mets and Phillies, but I think that this is a 96, 97 win team at the end of the day. But now your Mets and Phillies tied 90.5 for over-under. We'll start with the Mets here. Obviously, the Burrows, one of our squads. 90.5, where are you going?
Yeah, I'm going over on the Mets. And listen, again, I told you this yesterday. If I'm sounding like a Mets fanboy, hit me, check me. I know it over might sound like an unpopular opinion at 90.5, but I think the offense is going to be one of the three best in baseball, if not the second best offense in baseball. The rotation, I'm comfortable with what David Stearns and Jeremy Hefner want to do. I mean, we've seen some results yet in spring training, sure, but guys pitching well. I think Holmes is going to end up being a nice signing for them, and they're going to get Manaea back by mid-April. I think the rotation is going to be fine, and they have the ability and the pieces to go get somebody at the deadline, and they're also going to be bringing up their biggest pitching prospect at some point mid-year towards the end of the year. So I go over on the Mets. The bullpen's going to be better than people think as well. I love Mendoza. I love this team, and I think they're an over 90.5. Close over. The three teams are going to be separated, in my opinion, by 5 or 6 games. It is going to be that tight. I mean, I'm not saying the Braves are going to be this 87-win team. Like, no, the Braves will probably win 90 games still. Just go under. The Mets are probably going to win 92, 93 games.
I have the over on the Mets as well. You look at the lineup, and it has the makings of a 90-win team. It absolutely does. And I can live with the pitching staff because I do always think, especially with a guy like David Stearns, do I think he gets the splash Dylan Cease at the deadline? No. But if there are problems that need to be addressed because the Mets aren't getting to where they need to be, they're going to be addressed. And they have the players, they have the prospects. I will also say you have to factor in the fact Soto, this is a 26-year-old player, so you're now more comfortable giving up the 19-year-old that you have in your farm that most teams don't want to because you have the superstar entering his prime, maybe not even in it yet. You have the hitter that could be in his prime for the next 7-8 years. You don't need to wait on the prospect. So I like the Mets at the over. Now I'm curious, you said these teams are separated by just a few games. Do you also have the Phillies over at 90.5, or are they just under?
I have the Phillies going over. I think the rotation's that good. They're going to, I mean, that could end up being, I mean, there's like 5 teams that I've said or will say have the best rotation in baseball. I think the Phillies could absolutely be one of them. The bullpen scares me. Offensively, they might regress a little bit. We talked about that last week when we discussed the Phillies, but I still think with that rotation, they'll score enough runs. They'll go just over 90.5. I think they come in second here.
I'm saying just under the 90.5. I know that I had some cruel words for the Phillies last week, and I stand by a lot of them today. So stand by all of them today. You can see it on Instagram and TikTok. We posted a couple of the clips of us talking Phillies, talking Trey Turner. I don't know. This team, as I said last week, I just feel that they are going to regress a little bit off last season. I don't love how the veterans are aging in that lineup. Last year, I thought we saw the first signs of regression. Harper will still be great. Schwarber, I think, gives you the same production he always gives you. But how much do I trust those guys? The X factor here, though, that the Phillies have that no one else in this division has is Zach Wheeler. And Wheeler is probably my favorite pitcher in Major League Baseball at this point. I love watching him throw. To have him is going to go a long way for them in this race because the big games, unless Strider and Sale are the guys that they can be, the big games down the stretch in August and September, the Phillies are going to be able to put Zach Wheeler on that mound. And the Mets are going to, I mean, I'm not even trying to make a joke, but they're going to be sitting there potentially saying Clay Holmes or Kodai Senga, and that's a problem down the stretch there when you're playing Philadelphia. But I do think that they finish just under that 90.5 win total. They might win 90 games on the dot for me. I could see that. I could see them winning 98. You know, it's just, this is where I'm at. You got to pick one of these teams to finish third, and they're going to be my third out of these 3. I said it last week. I basically gave it away. Let's go last 2 teams, and then we'll get to our standings. Nationals over 70.5 for me.
Yeah, I agree. They're going to be pesky. They're going to be fun. They're a young team, and I worry a little bit about the pitching, how good they're going to be, but they're going to score some runs, man, and they're going to be a thorn in these teams' side this year in what is an excellent division. They're going to add to that. You're going to say, wow, that Nationals team is not as bad as their 73 wins says. So I think they're an over.
And the Marlins, I'm going under 63.5. Very boring team to talk about, though.
Under. When does Alcantara get traded, and how much is it for? That's about it.
Absolutely. So how do you lay out the 5 teams in this standings-wise?
So I had the Mets winning the division for the first time since 2015. I had the Phillies in second. I had the Braves in third. I had the Nats in 4 and the Marlins in 5th.
I had the Braves, then Mets. Basically, you swap Braves and Phillies. Okay. So I have the Braves winning it. I have the Mets in second. No, you don't swap Braves and Phillies because you have the Mets winning.
Yeah.
But yeah, Braves, Mets, Phillies, Nationals, Marlins for me. And I don't know, man. I think Atlanta's better than you're giving them credit for, even without Sale. And I will say on the Mets fanboy stuff, you're not even doing that. I don't even think. I don't think that you're being too high on the Mets. I think you're too low on the Braves.
I think, again, like, we're not talking about what's not going to happen for them. And how long is it going to take for Strider to get back to that form? Does he get back to that form this season? How about Acuna? Before he went down last season, he had a 700 OPS. I'm just, the questions, like, we're talking about how great they're going to be, but we're not asking the questions of what could possibly go wrong with them. And those are real concerns.
And I think, though, when I speak on Strider, and Strider could have a Walker Buehler season like Buehler had last year. I could see one of those terrible first years back from injury, but Strider has a little bit of a cushion here. I think Sale, Lopez, Schwellenbach, and Holmes, I guess, is going to be their 4. I don't love Holmes, but I like Schwellenbach, I like Lopez, and I like Sale. They can hold it down for the first 2-3 months of the season and let those guys get back into form. I think their lineup will do the same for Acuna, and it relies on the guys that didn't perform last year, as I mentioned, the guys that didn't perform last year taking another step forwards and doing what we know they can. Austin Riley still had a good year last year. He hit some slumps early. Still ended up with a good season. So if Riley just does his usual thing, which he's going to, Profar is a big X factor in this. He's really their only add, and what can he do? Albies entering a contract year could be a big one for him. I think he'll stay around the same rate, though, because I feel like he hits his ceiling every year. Olsen is the guy, right? Olsen's the guy who I think last year didn't have the usual top 3 first base season he always has. I don't even know if he had an 800 OPS. I think he might have been just over 800. And you need him to be his usual self. Ozuna, I agree with you. Not going to happen again. Marcell Ozuna is not going to happen again. But I like this team a lot. I do.
I get it. They scare the hell out of me. Don't get me wrong.
And I think they know how to win. That's another part of this with Atlanta, because a lot went wrong for them last year and they still found their way to the postseason. Even though they were the 6th seed and they got bounced relatively quick, they know how to win. They know how to get there. They've done it without Acuna. They've won the World Series. We know that. We don't have to keep beating that drum, but they're good. I think the Mets, when we factor in with the Mets, what could go wrong with them, there's also a lot there. And there is, I agree with you, the bullpen's going to be better than people expect, but there is a reality where the Mets bullpen is not very good, and they need to add to it. And if the Mets bullpen's not very good, that's trouble, because the starting pitching doesn't figure to be great. I think the starting pitching they'll figure out, especially when Manaea comes back mid-April, late April. I think they'll figure it all out, but I don't know. I just don't. I can't do it with the Mets pitching. I can't put them over 94, 95 wins with their pitching.
It makes sense. I get the concerns. I think and Senga worries the hell out of me, but he's healthy right now, and I have to go based on what's happening right now. And if he's healthy, he could be a top 2 guy in the rotation, and I think they have that.
He could be. All right, let's move to the NL Central here. You good on that? And then I think we'll have a larger discussion with the NL playoffs.
Yes.
Later on. That'll fuel more. But the NL Central, the Cubs have the highest over-under, 87.5. Do you think that they exceed that number?
My favorite under bet of the year, the Chicago Cubs.
So easy.
I love it. Overrated. The lineup has holes. I have questions at the bottom of the rotation. They've been bad for 2 years in a row now. They choked away a couple of years ago a postseason spot. And you add Tucker, but you don't add much. You trade Bellinger. You do this, you do that. Like, you traded major leaguers for Tucker, and it's only 1 year of him. I have a serious question about the direction of this organization. So while I like Imananga and I like Steele at the top, I don't love the bottom of that rotation. Is Tyone going to do it again, have another solid season? I'm not sure. I go under. This is an easy under for me. I think this team misses the playoffs, Kevin. This is not a playoff team.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there.
Wow, really?
I agree with you.
We're going to have different winners, though. I'm telling you, we're going to have different winners.
We better. Because if you're as nuts as I am with my pick.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I know we both like this team, but I didn't do this.
Okay. So the Cubs, though, I hate what they did this offseason. And I love Kyle Tucker. I would have been, if the Yankees got Kyle Tucker, I would have been telling you today how they are winning the World Series.
You would have the jersey hanging up already.
I would have had the jersey on my body. It would have been on my body.
You want me to get my Soto jersey? I got mine right now.
No, we do not need you to get your Soto jersey for this. Or for any episodes this season.
Okay, sounds good.
But the Cubs, why would you get rid of Bellinger after getting Tucker? And then the comments from ownership about spending and not wanting to spend and budgeting, and very transparent about being cheap and basically screwing your fans and your team, because they could win. You go get Kyle Tucker, Mike. You're all in if you go trade for Kyle Tucker.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as the Yankees last year when you get Soto. I view it exactly the same. You're giving up top trade assets to get a superstar with 1 year of control. You better be all in. And does it feel at all like Kyle Tucker's back in Chicago a year from now?
No, not at all. And they're not all in. It doesn't, what's the protection for him in this lineup? Who is his protection here? So
look at this projected lineup again. I was looking at it last night.
You got Michael Busch, you have Dansby Swanson, Nico Horner's starting on the year on the IL.
They're already 0-1 when we're doing this episode.
Yeah, that is true.
Already 0-1.
Did he play?
Who, Order?
Tucker.
Oh, I'm not sure. That's a good question. Let me look. It's not my opening day, so I don't pay attention.
I didn't see a second. All I know is your boy John Birdie made an error.
Tucker opening day did play 0 for 4. So nice start to a contract year.
That's good.
But either way, so this lineup stinks. Pete Crow Armstrong, why does this guy get the most hype every offseason of any player in Major League Baseball?
Back again. The propaganda is back for him again.
The propaganda is all the way back every time this year for Pete Crow Armstrong. And Mets fans get clowned for it still a little bit. Like, oh, you traded him for Baez. But
Still a terrible trade.
PCA would not. It's still a terrible trade. PCA would not play on the Mets.
I don't know.
No, he wouldn't. I'm standing by it. Wouldn't.
I don't know.
I would bench him. Series hitting 25 home runs. Soto's in right. Nimmo's in left. PCA's not playing.
Okay.
But either way, this team is very upsetting, underwhelming. If I was a Cubs fan, the pitching staff is all right. But yeah, done talking Cubs. All right. Brewers won the division last year, got bounced first round by your boys. 82.5 is their total. Do they once again exceed that number?
Oh yeah, they do. This team exceeds that number big time. This is the back-to-back NL Central champions, these Milwaukee Brewers. I'm a huge fan of this team. I think they're going to be, again, like they're one of those teams that just surprise you every year. They somehow figure out their pitching staff, and they got guys this year. A couple of guys starting the year on the IL. The DJ Hall, the guy they got in the Burns trade from Baltimore, Tobias Myers, who was shutting down the Mets in Game 5 for a little bit. They're going to start the year on the IL, but they should be back at some point. And they add Jose Quintana, who's just a good veteran presence, and obviously Peralta and Cortez at the top. I like it. Apparently, they have a guy that is going to replace Devin Williams like this. Craig Yoho, I think is how you say his name. He was unbelievable in AAA at a .89 ERA in 57 innings. He is apparently nasty. And at some point, if it's not at the start of the year, will be the closer, or at least a back-end guy with Trevor McGill, who is also nasty. I mean, this team, they replace guys, they plug and play, and it works. And this will be the Central champions. Jackson Chourio is going to win an MVP at some point in the National League. It might not be, it's not going to be this year, but he's still great.
Yeah, I do think that the Brewers aren't easy over. 82.5 is a very low number for a team that is successful every season. Every year, the Brewers show up and do what they have to do. They don't trade guys like Devin Williams and Corbin Burns without having a plan, and they do a good job of understanding we're not going to re-sign these guys. This is how teams with owners of this ilk should be operating, just like Milwaukee does. We have a year left on these guys' contracts. We will not lose them for nothing, and we have been planning to replace him for more than a year now. So you have a good squad here in Milwaukee. I thought they got a good return for Williams as well, being able to get an arm in Nestor that gives you quality outings throughout the season. Good job by Milwaukee this offseason. So I have them easy over there. Cincinnati Reds, 79.5 is the number. Terry Francona, year 1. You know I'm going over. Or you start
us off.
I love the Reds. I'm pumped about the Reds and the Terry Francona era. And I do just think this is one of those situations where you have a group of young players. I didn't love that they got rid of India, to be honest with you. But I thought that was a great trade for Kansas City.
I like that trade a lot too for Kansas City.
But the team in a weaker division, perhaps the weakest division, I don't think it is, but arguments to be made. And they will take the next step with a manager who understands how to win, who understands how to get the most out of his players, who understands how to operate the game. And now you have a true baseball guy running this organization as the face of this organization. I'm pumped for the Reds this year. Great young talent in this building, in that clubhouse. I'm all in. All in on Cincinnati. You know they're winning my division. You know that they're winning my division.
I knew it.
I don't have to wait. You know that it's happening based on this conversation already. And I think Cincinnati takes that step and ends up winning 88, 89 games, maybe 90 plus.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that this is the team. This is the team that surprises people this year.
I like the over. I'm with you 100% on everything you said. I'm not going that far. They're going to score runs. They're a good young offensive team. I actually really like the rotation in the bullpen as well, but really the rotation, I don't like getting rid of India, but you bring back Singer, who was really good last season in Kansas City, and he's going to slot in to be your 2 or 3 starter. So I do like the way this team will pitch. I love Francona. I like the young offense. They're going to score runs. They're going to be exciting. I just don't think it's enough, but they're over 500 this year. And they take that first step in the Francona era of saying, wow, we're a legitimate franchise. We're going to compete. And this is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's good pitching, and it's a lineup that is probably league average, I'd say, in the lineup. And when you have a guy in Ellie De La Cruz who could end up just going on an absolute tear with a manager that can get him to where he has to be, I think De La Cruz's numbers have been a little overrated. His production's been a little overrated so far to start his career.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
But now, because he's so exciting when he has a good moment, it's just so electric. But now with Francona, I think he actually can get to that point where he is. Last year, he just cracked 800 OPS. He had an 803 OPS. I think he could get to the point where he's over 850 this year, and he is one of the best players in baseball because of what he gives you on the bases, because of what he can give you in the field, and just the flash plays. He is going to become one of those guys that are incredibly valuable. But I am pumped for the Reds. I will not watch any NL Central, though. I will just follow their box scores and watch them.
I like the Central. I like the NL Central a lot better than the AL Central.
AL Central stinks. AL Central.
This is watchable baseball here. This is like the Cubs will be watchable, the Brewers will be watchable, the Reds will be watchable.
Yes. And there's a little bit of an aura, I think, with some of these NL Central teams. Like Cubs are playing at Wrigley against these teams. Dude, I was going to just go to the NL West, and I forgot about the Pirates and Cardinals, to be totally honest with you just now.
Yeah, that's fine.
To go through. But let's go through them. Pirates and Cardinals both at 75.5 on FanDuel over-unders for them.
Let me just make sure I have this correct. I went the Pirates with a slight over. This could have been a sneaky team if they weren't playing in this league, and if they actually spent some money. They'll pitch. We know they're carried by their pitching staff. Paul Skeens is unbelievable, but they're going to struggle to score some runs. I'll take a slight over here because the division isn't as great, but they're in fourth for me. I'm not loving what I see in Pittsburgh.
And I am going to go the same way, though, over, slight over for Pittsburgh, under for St. Louis. Because
yeah, I was hoping you were on the over here because I'm on a huge under. I mean, I'll bet this under.
If they're 75.5, if they were 65.5, I would have considered an under.
Wow, okay, that's
I wouldn't have done it, but I would have considered it.
It's crazy aggressive. They're not going to be good. How about that? They're going to be they're just what happened to this franchise that was once a proud one of the 5 best organizations in baseball. I mean, what has happened here? It's honestly sad because our whole lives they've been one of the premier franchises, and now they've become just a total joke, and they're going to go under 75.5, and they deserve it.
I mean, this is a rotation that has Sonny Gray as the ace. And, we can joke about Sonny Gray, but he's a 3 pitcher.
Okay. Yeah.
Everyone else is terrible in the rotation. All 4 guys after him, because there's a gap between Gray and Fetty, Michaelis, Matz. The team stinks. And then in your lineup, Lars Nootbaar is your premier player, and I hear so much hype about Lars Nootbaar from Cardinals fans. He's a 750 OPS guy.
Yeah.
This is a guy that should be hitting 6th, 7th on a contender.
Yeah.
So
we were sent an article yesterday. I read the headline and I didn't even.
Oh yeah, what did that headline say? Nootbaar analytics project Nootbaar to trend in the same direction as Ohtani and Soto. Was
that a legit article or is that a troll?
Nobody's clicking that, dude. In 2025, that's the worst clickbait ever. Lars Nootbaar is going to be Soto and Ohtani this year.
Thank you, Anthony. We appreciate it. Thank you for sending us that.
That was terrible. Brutal. All right, how do you have the NL Central playing out in the standings?
I had the Brewers finishing in first. I had the Cubs in second, the Reds in third, the Pirates in fourth, and the Cardinals coming in last.
All right, I go Reds, Brewers, Cubs, Pirates, Cardinals. Cardinals easy last place.
Yeah.
In this division. Everything else, who cares? NL West, another good one here.
Yep.
Dodgers highest over-under total in the league by 11 games, 104.5. It's an easy over, Mike.
I agree. It's when it's obvious, Kevin, when you feel like it's obvious, you go the other way, right? It's obvious. There's no way we could bet a team to win 105 games or more, right? No, bet it. Please do it. The rotation's deep enough for me to feel comfortable. If they had the offense, right, but the rotation wasn't as deep as it is, I would be on the under. But they have guys who just slot in. If there's an injury, bang, they're going to replace them. And the drop-off isn't going to be as bad. So I go over here with, is this the best team on paper of our lifetime? I'm not including the 90s Yankees. Is this the best team on paper?
Well, you know what, Mike? It's something that we could talk about later on in the year because it's not a conversation we had prep, but they might be better than those 90s Yankees teams on paper. Because on paper, this is a group with 4 MVP guys in their top 4 in the lineup. They have 8 or 9 starting pitchers that would be in 25 rotations.
Yeah.
And they have the best closer in the league, who happens to be a lefty. How valuable is Tanner Scott? It's ridiculous, man. Because when I'm looking at this team and you're just thinking about ways to try and knock them down in these conversations, like where's their flaw? How could I come out here and say
there is none?
This is where the Dodgers could get exposed. This is where they're not as good as this team. They have the best starting rotation. They have potentially the best bullpen, and they have easily the best lineup.
Their issues last season early was the bottom of the order not producing.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to have that issue at all this season. I think Conforto is going to be a player that Michael Conforto was signed there. He's had a nice spring. I think he's just going to, whatever they feed him in LA and whatever they're teaching them, it's going to work. He's going to have a nice season at the bottom of that lineup for them. They're going to be just fine. There's nothing to critique here. Nothing.
Listen to the guys that are on this bench. This is the bench. Hai-Sung Kim, who is a potential rookie of the year infielder.
Sure.
Starting the year injured or starting the year in AAA. Kike Hernandez, we all know what he's able to do. One of the best, most valued bench bats in Major League Baseball. Chris Taylor, one of the best utility guys of the last decade defensively. Eddie Rosario, who's bounced around everywhere, been a part of major postseason success. These are the guys that don't play for them. They're players that start on contenders and hit top 6, 7 in lineups. And then you go to their actual lineup, and it's the best player in the league, Ohtani, maybe the 4th best player in the league, Betts, a top 15 player in Freeman, a top 50 player in Hernandez, Muncy, a very good baseball player. I mean, had the down year last year, but still a guy that every team would take.
Yep.
Will Smith is arguably the best catcher in Major League Baseball. Michael Conforto, I know our expectations, both you just mentioned them, are so high. Tommy Edman, who was electric for LA last year.
Babe Ruth in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And then James Outman, who could be a really good player for them also. Limited sample size, only had 100 at-bats last year.
Or Pajes.
Yeah, exactly. So this is where we're at. And they're in the starting rotation. Yamamoto, best 25-year-old pitcher in the sport. 25, 26, however old he is.
Okay.
Roki Sasaki, we'll see. Blake Snell, 2-time Cy Young winner. Tyler Glasnow, one of the best pitchers in the league when healthy. Dustin May is terrific. Oh, did I mention Shohei Ohtani yet? How about their number 7 in the rotation, future Hall of Famer Clayton Kershaw, who I know doesn't have much left in the tank, but come on, Clayton Kershaw is their number 7.
Didn't mention Bobby Miller either, who was in the rotation to start the year last year and had big expectations.
It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Who comes second fiddle in the NL West? Is it the Arizona Diamondbacks, who have the second highest win total, second highest line for over-under, 86.5?
And it won't feel like second fiddle. It'll feel like, oh, this is a formidable second-place team to one of the better teams we've ever seen. I know you're high on this team, and I'll give you the spotlight to talk about them. I'll say this. I have them as an easy over. I think they're a 90-win ball club. I do worry about the bullpen, but I think they'll add to the bullpen at some point as we get closer to the deadline. The rotation, it's one of the best in baseball, easily. That top 2 of Burns and Gallen is going to be nasty. I like Burns in the controlled environment in a dome in Arizona. I love it, love it, love it. This team is really good. And if you could get Corbin Carroll back to that player we saw in his rookie season, how dangerous is that? Love this team. Love the over. They're a 90-win ball club. You go.
I think my statement from 2 weeks ago that I think they could be the second best team in all of baseball, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm not going to go there. Easy over. Maybe they feel like the Padres did last year. I think that's how it's going to feel. That we're sitting in the postseason saying the only team that could beat the Dodgers, and this might not end up being true, but the only team that could really beat the Dodgers is the team they have to play in the division round because they're in the same division, and it's the Diamondbacks. That could be where we sit come playoff time. However, you're right. Carroll is a total X factor for this team. He has to get back to the player he was for me to think they can reach their expectations. I love their top four. Carroll, Marte, Naylor, Gurriel. I'm a huge Josh Naylor guy. I think going into the contract year here also, going into this lineup, he'll have a little bit of juice, extra something to give. And their starters. I love their starters.
Yeah.
Adding Corbin Burns was a home run for them. Zach Gallen is one of the premier young pitchers in the league. Merrill Kelly, I like. I know that he didn't have a great year last year, but I think that Merrill Kelly now being pushed back in the rotation could be a better player. And then you have Fott and Rodriguez. We'll see with those two guys. I agree with you. I don't love the bullpen. Bullpen's worse than I thought it was, and I do see Diamondbacks fans. I'll take it with a grain of salt because I only watch so much Diamondbacks baseball every year. I do see Diamondbacks fans ripping Lovello for saying he cannot manage the bullpen or manage big games in the regular season. They blow a lot of games that way. I'll take their word for it. I don't know if it's totally true.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit less than what they're saying. But D-backs I'm very high on. I think that this could be a really good offense, and they're another team deadline move away.
What if you get Montgomery going again at any level better than what he was? I mean, that could be a huge deal as well.
Is he injured?
I think he's pitching. I thought he was pitching as of last week or 2 weeks ago.
Okay, he was pitching last week. He had an index finger injury in the beginning of March, and he just came back to pitch last week. That's why I kind of didn't mention him just now, because I didn't know if he was back yet. But, yeah, Montgomery, if you can get him going at all, then
That's your guy. That's your guy. Before I even knew you, that was your guy.
I guess, yeah, before we even knew each other, I hated Jordan Montgomery.
Yeah.
And then, all things fair, he was part of the Rangers World Series, and he kind of led the way for that pitching staff along with Evaldi. So if they can get Montgomery back to just being a 4 ERA guy that gives him some innings, then that's a dangerous rotation. But you look at them versus the Dodgers, it's just discouraging for any team. How about the Padres? Very disappointing offseason. 85.5 is the win total for a team that I think we all maybe could agree was probably the second best club in baseball last year. Mm-hmm. Where are you? 85.5 is the number.
Yeah, and it's not I don't blame the ownership because of the situation going on. You know, obviously had the death of Peter Seidler. I go under. They've been flirting with trading their top guys in the rotation. They ended up adding Pivetta to a very interestingly constructed contract. I go under here. I think eventually they will move off of a guy like Cease, who's going to be a free agent. I don't love it. There's not a lot of depth in this lineup, especially towards the bottom. I love Jackson Merrill. Obviously, Tatis is unbelievable. I'm not going to make anything of spring, but Machado's getting up there, and he's not hitting the spring. But I don't care. But Machado's getting up there in age is really the point I'm trying to make. I love Merrill. I love Tatis. I don't know how much I love the rest of this lineup, and I go under. I go under that 85.5.
And Arias, whether we love him or not as a player, I don't think he's a great player, probably the most overrated player in the sport. Yeah. And I am an average guy too, and that just speaks to how he is in the rest of his game. But I think that he's a guy that is probably their next best hitter after the guys you named, and he's probably going to get moved anyways this season. So it just feels like a retooling year for this entire franchise, and they're trying to figure out their future as a club. And I could see ownership changing hands in the next few years, and they have to bring in somebody else because this is just a really messy spot right now. And then, so I have an easy under on the 85.5. Giants and Rockies, I have both under. The Rockies are a 59.5 win total, and the Giants are at 79.5. Both are unders for me. Giants lineup stinks. Rockies are maybe the worst team in the league, and San Fran's pitching staff, Verlander doesn't move me as an addition.
I actually went over on both of these. It's a slight over on the Giants. I think the Rockies just play, in a ballpark where they have such an advantage. I think they'll just go under the 59.5. I didn't write anything down about them though. I just literally said I have nothing to say. The Giants, they'll pitch. Robbie Ray's coming back. Obviously, Verlander, Logan Webb, and they add Adames. I feel bad because they are trying to add, but they just can't add. Nobody wants to go there. So they're an 80, 81 win team. Maybe they finish a little bit over 500, but I'm not a fan of this team at all.
Yeah, and when I go under 79.5 for them, I'm really saying like 77, 78 wins on the year. They're one of those teams that finishes just under 80, gives you a little bit to be proud of if you're a Giants fan. Maybe late July, you're arguing for them to buy a little bit at the deadline, but in the end, doesn't even matter. Postseason bracket in the National League, or actually NL West standings first. I think we have it the same here.
We're the same. Yeah, I'm gonna go Dodgers, Diamondbacks, Padres, Giants, Rockies.
All right, so let's get into the bracket for the National League. Your 6 seeds in the NL playoffs, Michael Merlo.
Okay, so we had the Dodgers, obviously, as the first seed. We had the Mets as the second, the Brewers as the third, the Diamondbacks as the fourth, the Phillies the fifth, and the Braves as the sixth.
Okay, so I have the Dodgers as the 1, Braves as the 2, Reds as the 3, Diamondbacks as the 4, Mets as the 5, Phillies as the 6. The only reason I have the D-backs ahead of the Mets is because I think the Mets lose a couple more division games, as well as the Phillies. I think the Mets and Phillies both are in the same spot where they lose a couple extra division games compared to Arizona, who might have an easier bottom 3. And I know the Dodgers are the Dodgers, but the Diamondbacks will probably play the Dodgers at the same rate of success that the Mets, Braves, and Phillies play each other. Just adding in that extra team is going to bump them down. All within Diamondbacks, Mets, Phillies, all within 4 wins of each other, probably, in what I'm thinking. Who do you have then advancing to the championship series?
Same thing. You just want the NLCS, right?
Yep.
So I had the Dodgers over the Mets in the NLCS, and I had the Dodgers and the Red Sox in the World Series.
I have the Dodgers and Mets as well, and a repeat of the NLCS. I do think when it gets to postseason time, even though I don't have the Mets winning the division and I have them as a 5 seed, by the way, best 5 seed in baseball history, but the Mets, I think by the time the playoffs come around, we will be saying, because of the moves they made at the deadline, because of whatever transpired throughout the year, I'm optimistic that we will say they finished second in their division, they're the 5th seed in the postseason, but they are the second best team in this bracket. I do think that's going to happen for the Mets this year, as long as they stay healthy. And then I do have the Dodgers going to the World Series and beating the Rangers, because this is what I said before, man. There's just no way to not take the Dodgers in these situations.
You feel like an idiot not, because I don't want to pick them. You know, I don't want to. Who am I going to pick? You know, I don't love the Braves. I don't love the Phillies. I'm not picking the Mets. You know, I can't pick the Diamondbacks. Who are you going to pick? And then I'm not going to take one of these AL teams over any of these NL teams. I tweeted this out yesterday. I think I would take 5 NL teams before I would take an AL team. And I think I find that to be true.
The only reason you can justify an AL team winning the World Series is because if you love one so much, they have a much better chance of getting there. Therefore, their probability could be argued to be higher to win the whole thing. But when they meet any of these National League teams, the National League is going to have 7 teams entering this season that if they were in the World Series, I would not be surprised. The 6 teams I named in the postseason, and I would throw in the Padres or the Brewers if you wanted to argue either of them. I don't think it's nuts. The American League has 3 teams I could see in the championship, or 4 teams. Yankees, Red Sox, Astros, Rangers. Only 4 teams I can see getting the World Series.
Yep. It's a weak league. I'm not. You just said it. You can't feel confident about anybody else. And if the Yankees get healthy, then Heel's pitching right, and Fried's on, then yeah, they're going to be the team. But who the hell knows? Who the hell knows what is going to happen in that American League, and then the National League is just a gauntlet.
Yep, it is. You ready for awards now?
Awards. Yes, very excited for awards.
In awards. So We'll start in the AL again.
Yep.
We'll just start. Actually, let's just start with the MVPs here for both leagues.
Mhm.
NL MVP I'm going to go to because it's the most chalk one ever is Ohtani. I just cannot, once again, see this guy losing that award when he stole 50 bags last year. He hit 50 home runs, and he's going to be pitching this year. Can't see him losing.
I went a little fanboy here, and I did it. I didn't want to go chalk. I did not want to go chalk here, and I went Soto.
Well, he's second.
He's second. I think Ohtani is going to struggle as a pitcher this year a little bit. I don't think it's going to be this. And listen, I understand he doesn't have to be an ace. He can still hit 40 home runs, and as long as he has like a 4 ERA, he's probably in a good spot to win it. But I think Soto, in my scenario here, leads the Mets to a division title, has a huge year. I think he probably wins it. I'll say that. He's that good of a player. He's only 26. I'll bet against Ohtani for 1 year as he comes back from the major elbow surgery.
And I do think, too, and I could get that point, that whole thinking. I don't think Soto's crazy to say.
Yeah.
But the problem for me with the voters and Ohtani is I feel like he's so beloved, and that's great. I'm not here to say he shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But if he had a 4.7 ERA next year, but hit 43 home runs with 128 RBIs and a 300 average while he stole 28 bases, they're going to say he's the best player because he was near the top of every offensive category. And who else could have thrown 140 innings at a 4.8 ERA? That's what the argument's going to be. And it's going to kill the chances of somebody else, I fear, because I don't think we should be. If the Mets win the division and they win 95-plus games and Soto is a finalist for MVP, he probably should win it because he's probably going to be the most valuable player to their team. But, they love Ohtani, and that's fair.
They love
that's
Ohtani.
Fine. You should.
We should love Ohtani because it's something you've never seen before, and we should all appreciate it. It gets overblown a little bit, sure, but we should all appreciate what we're watching, just like with LeBron. We should just appreciate it.
And then AL MVP, I know you're a little chalky here. I'm going to ignore the LeBron mention on the prediction show. AL MVP, you're a little chalky here. You're a guy.
Yeah, it's Judge. I mean, if you're getting Judge in a spot, like there are some sites here that you can get Judge as the second favorite to an AL MVP. Are you freaking kidding me? This guy is going to walk so much. His WAR is going to be so high. He's back in his his more comfortable defensive position in right field. His WAR is going to be even higher than it was. He might not hit 50 home runs this year. In fact, I'll guarantee he doesn't hit 50 home runs this year because of how little he'll be pitched to. But he's going to hit 40. The average will be high. The on-base will be insane. Probably the highest on-base of his career. And he's going to win MVP again. Because you know why? He's the best freaking player in the league still.
I agree that he's the best player in the league. This is
American League.
This is one where I think in the whole league, but this is one where I really had to get a little creative because I think the problem for Judge is exactly what you said. He's not going to get pitched to very much. And I don't know how many runs, production opportunities he's going to have, runners in scoring position throughout the season now, whereas last year Soto was on base all the time. And that really drove up Judge's production. He had over 140 RBIs. I think he finished with 145. And this year with whoever's in front, whether it's Wells hitting first or Chisholm or Bellinger, whoever's in front of him, I don't love the outlook there for run production in at least the beginning of the season. Maybe if Volpe or Chisholm figure it out, can hit in front of him and get on second base, fine. No one gets on base enough, though, for me to think the Judge can contribute that way. And I don't think Bobby Witt's going to win it either, because I don't think the Royals are going to score enough. So I had to really get creative, because you look through the AL list.
How creative did you get?
I think Skubal takes home all the hardware. First pitcher since 2014 to win MVP, and he wins the Cy Young, obviously, in that scenario. I think that we're just going to be sitting here late September, and it will be those three names, Skubal, Judge, Witt. But Judge and Witt will be having kind of years closer to that Bryce Harper MVP season that he should not have won, but closer to that season than the years that Judge and Witt actually had last year. And Skubal will have another dominant, maybe sub 1 year at a 1.9, 1.8 ERA. And we'll just have to give it to him. We'll have to.
He's the best pitcher in baseball. I mean, that's for sure. It's, there's no doubt. And he has that effect. He was the reason why they went so deep, the reason why they were able to go on a postseason run last season. So, yeah, I don't hate it. You said you got creative, and you were not lying. You got real creative there.
You can't even find Skubal on sports books because nobody bets pitchers. The odds are so massive for a pitcher to win because the Cy Young is the pitcher's MVP award.
Yeah.
So they don't really give it out. But I think for the first time since Clayton Kershaw in 2014, we get an MVP pitcher this year. Your AL Cy Young.
I wanted to go with Garrett Crochet, but I felt it was too chalk. I love Crochet. I think he's going to have that kind of effect on the Red Sox. But my pick is Framber Valdez in a contract year. He was great last season, and I will take Valdez. I love picking guys in contract years. Love it. Mm-hmm. And this is a big one. Valdez had arguably the best season of his career in 24. I think they are going to need him, even more than they've ever in a season where they did offload some offensive pieces, him and Brown at the top. I also consider Hunter Brown. I'm not going to lie to you. But two guys at the top here that are just elite. I think that's going to help both of them. I'll take Valdez to win the Cy Young. And the odds are great. I have, did I write them down? I'm pretty sure I did. Plus 2,200. Great odds on that.
Yeah, I considered them there because I don't know how the voting would go. NFL, it's like they have the MVP is always an offensive player, but they give offensive player of the year to the next guy. Right. So I didn't know maybe could Skubal win MVP and could Valdez win Cy Young, but I don't really think it would ever work out that way in baseball. So I do obviously have to go Skubal. I love Valdez though, and I think it's going to be one of the three lefties. I think those are great picks. I don't think Fried's gonna be able to do it with the Yankees. Smaller park now.
Yeah.
I like that pick a lot. Your NL Cy Young, I kind of alluded to mine earlier. I think Zach Wheeler wins it and wills the Phillies into the final playoff spot in my scenario. Your NL Cy Young.
So I was between two guys, and Wheeler was one of them. So I'm going to switch mine.
Okay.
Blake Snell is going to win this Cy Young, and he's going to make a very, very interesting candidacy here now for the Hall of Fame, winning his third. I'll go Blake Snell. I mean, the Dodgers, we've seen with the Mets now last season and other teams that have these great pitching labs and great pitching coaches. I think they'll unlock something in Blake Snell here to make him even better. He was great in the second half last season. If he's healthy, I'll take Snell at plus 1,000, I think it is, to win the Cy Young.
Yeah, I agree with Snell as an argument. Those are the two guys I considered also.
Really?
I wonder, yeah, and I was sitting there thinking last night, why don't I think Yamamoto should be in this group? Because Yamamoto is going to have a year this year, I think.
You think?
But I'm going to go Wheeler. Wheeler's my guy. I love Zach.
It's health with him.
Well, what about
how could you trust him?
The problem that I have with Snell, the reason I didn't pick it is just because of the innings.
Yeah,
and he won a Cy Young pitching 145 innings with San Diego. So I think that Wheeler will give you the innings, give you the wins, give you the ERA. I love Zach Wheeler. I'm a huge Zach Wheeler guy.
So am I. He should have a Cy Young at this point. It's kind of BS that he doesn't. Yep. I'm a big Wheeler guy as well, and I was going to pick him, but I'll take Snell.
I think he finally grabs it. All right, Manager of the Year. We got two awards left: Manager of the Year and Rookie of the Year. Rookie of the Year is a total dart throw, but Manager of the Year based on scenarios. AL, I'm going Bochy. They get the 1 seed. I think that he just ends up locking that up. If the Rangers can go on the regular season run, I think, and win 95 games and get the 1 seed.
Yeah, I'll go Cora. I'm a big Alex Cora guy, and I think they win 80, 88, 90-plus games. The first year of them really being competitive in a while, I think he'll get it.
All right, your NL Manager of the Year?
I went with Mendoza. I think if the Mets win the division, it's going to be Mendoza. A lot of people felt like he was, not fairly considered last season. I think he finished third last season in Manager of the Year. And I think people really like Mendoza, and it'll almost be like a get back because they like him so much. And if he is able to finally win the division, he'll get it. So I'll go Mendoza. But again, it's impossible to predict this.
In my scenario, I have to go Terry Francona. If the Reds get into the postseason, and win, I have to go Francona. Rookie of the year, I'm curious, just where did you go with these? Because once again, total shot in the dark. You're just trying to get something, and who knows what these guys are going to do.
I think Jackson Jobe with the Tigers is going to come up and make a big impact at some point. He's been talking a lot of crap too, which I really like during the spring here. I think he'll come up and he'll make a big impact, and he'll be the American League Rookie of the Year.
For AL, I tried to go with the same grain as Luis Heel because I don't think that there is a prospect that is coming up that I'm super like. Jackson Holiday does not get me overly excited as a top prospect playing this year. Job is a guy I considered, and maybe it's Homer, fanboy, but I think Dominguez, just because he's a guy that has 2 years now where he's played Major League Baseball before this season, might just seamlessly jump in and just have a solid year in a weak group of rookies where he's able to take home a Rookie of the Year. And it's just one of those, just like Luis Heel, who had pitched for 4 seasons in Major League Baseball.
He knows what he's getting himself into. He knows.
Yeah, and I've seen Dominguez have at least 2 weeks of playing really good pro ball. So I went with Dominguez. And then in the NL, I think Sasaki's such a chalky pick. So I went with Dylan Cruz just to switch it up. Yeah, so I think we'll see. But Cruz is going to be up for a full year, played a little bit with
He's going to be
last
unbelievable. He's going to be
great.
Unbelievable.
He's going to be great. And I'm high on him since they got him. So great player at LSU. So we'll see.
Can I give you my dark horse and
yes.
dark horse NL MVP? Last season, during the Hardline MLB preview show, when we did that, I gave Lindor. I said, just sprinkle on Lindor. It was a crazy number, and Lindor finished in second. I'm giving you another one this year, and it's another crazy one. He's plus 8,000. Bet Michael Harris to win the MVP.
Wow, I like
Michael
that.
Harris Jr. He's a great defender in center field. His WAR numbers will be high. He was great when he came back from injury last season. The numbers don't look great overall in 24, but when he came back, he was unbelievable. Give me Michael Harris at plus 8,000. I'll put $5 on that when I go to Vegas. Come on. Enough's enough. Let's go.
I like that a lot. That's a good dark horse, underrated player, one of my favorite under-the-radar guys in the league. He doesn't get the star label in Atlanta, but he might be their most important player, all things considered, now on a yearly basis. Young guys, he's probably their most important asset, I would say, in their organization right now, as Michael Harris. A lot of teams would like to get their hands on him. Anything else from the prediction show here, 2025 Major League Baseball preview?
Starting in a week. I can't wait, or less than a week, whenever this drops. I'm pumped. I got nothing else to say. We got it out. My throat is dry. I need water.
Me too.
And that's about it. It was a great job. I love the predictions. This is one of my favorite shows to do as well, and I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Something that we will certainly be revisiting throughout the season. But in the meantime, while this drops, and you can find it also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, make sure to check out The Hardline for good NFL offseason content. Us at BTO, we're going to start slowing down the NFL offseason stuff a little bit and really ramping into baseball, a little bit of NBA playoffs. Also, that's usually what we get into this time of the year. So we're going to slow down except for on the draft content, and you can get more of your football fix with The Hardline. You can also get your New York sports daily fixes with the playbook every day with Gabe. So check that out on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks for watching this, my favorite episode of the year, except for when the Yankees are in the World Series. So far, we're 100% on Yankees World Series appearances with the Burrows. Pumped for season 2 of the show. It's going to be a great year and a lot of good storylines for us. Once again, we'll revisit this throughout the season because we're definitely going to have a handful of absolutely foolish lunacy takes, and we'll have at least one each take that we can really ride the whole year and say, I had this on the prediction show.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching.
Hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for watching. And we will be back later in the week for opening day, the real opening day, not the Tokyo opening day.